Hello, I've got an Ameritron RCS-4 remote antenna switch. They call it a relay box, but it's a remote antenna switch. You can see my labels on the top where I was going to label what antennas were on each. Anyway, I put it out there and got experimenting with it, and we've got a problem. Problem is antenna number 3 right here isn't connecting. So when it's supposed to switch to antenna 3, it's actually switching to antenna 4. And I'll get the schematic out in a bit here. I just don't have it handy at the moment. But I've got the screws already out of that, obviously. Yeah, having a look at the schematic, it looks like this relay here is the one that switches between 3 and 4. This relay switches us between 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, and then these relays switch, between 1 and 2 here and 3 and 4 there. So this is the one here that I think is our problem relay, that it sounds like it's switching, but the contacts don't seem to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we're going to dig into this. However, they sandwiched these boards here. So this board here and this one are sandwiched together, and you see there's very little room, like you can't hardly even see in there to see what's going on. And these SO239s are soldered through here, there, and there. And it's a double layer board, so we have two choices here. We can either desolder these or drill the rivets out, and if we drill the rivets out, those should just slide out of the hole and we can separate the boards that way. That's the route I'm going to choose. We pull these 4 screws out here and drill the rivets, then these should all come apart. I'm going to do that just because it's fairly hefty soldering to desolder those on 2 layers. It's certainly possible, but I just think that there's more chance for harm doing that than doing the rivets. We can drill the rivets out and then replace the rivets later, or replace them with stainless screws and star washers even might be slightly better. So we'll figure that out later, but I'm going to go ahead, drill this and get it apart so we can start doing the troubleshooting and seeing what's going on, because we can't get any troubleshooting equipment in there, including our eyes, to see what's going on. So I'm going to drill these out and then we'll be back. Okay, we're back here. As you can see, we've got the plate removed from the switch, so that's off of there. The switch is sitting in the housing, and I just set that there because all the components there, I don't want to set them flat on the workbench and risk damaging them, so they are just in there. It sits nicely sideways in the housing there and elevates it so it doesn't sit on any of those things, so that's all good. There's a temporary ground wire hooked up here because without the housing, there's now no longer a ground path from the outer part of this SO239 to the ground part of the circuit board. So that's temporary on there. And I've got a coax hooked up. That runs over to the operating desk where the control box is for this. That's all set up over there. And get my meter here. So we checked, this is in there is the contacts for that relay number 3 that we were suspicious of. And now that we can actually get at those, I checked them with the multimeter, and I probably won't do that here live on the video again. It's just a little tricky running over to the operating desk back and forth. But anyway, when I checked this, in the resting position, antenna 4 is the one that should be active. So I checked here, and sure enough, we have a path from the common to antenna 4. And then when I go to the operating desk and switch the switch on and turn us to antenna 3, I can hear the relay click. So it clicks, it does what it's supposed to do. Yet when I check the contacts, it's still connecting to antenna 4 and no connection to antenna 3. And when I move to the other positions, the other switches are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And what I thought maybe I'd find, I thought maybe once we got in here we'd see some sort of a soldering issue or something else, but no, that all looks good. So I suspect that the issue is in the relay itself, and something is going wrong with the contacts in there. Perhaps, there's quite a bit of mass here on the board on each side. I'm gonna guess that maybe when it got soldered into place, just a little bit too much heat and something went wrong in the relay. That's going to be my guess. So I guess my next step will be to remove the relay from the board and go from there. But yeah, that's where we're at here now. Well, here we're going to just demonstrate the desoldering. Handy little desoldering tool here, and let that liquefy. And there we go. There's one. And repeat the process. Probably could wet the, there we go. Probably could wet the iron and speed that up a bit, but that works. So I've got a few more to do there. They're a little bit trickier under this guy. Luckily, a person can sort of rotate those a little bit gently, of course. But yeah, hopefully get all those removed and get that relay out of there. Okay, we're back here. Got the relay out. There it is. It's a dual pole, dual throw relay, 12 volt. And to get it out, I ended up having to remove the one SO239 that was there. I just couldn't get at the one solder pin on the relay otherwise, so I removed that. And then that's where the SO239 came out. That's antenna 3. That's antenna 4. I didn't like the look of that one, so I just, while the desoldering gun was going, I just took a bunch of the excess solder off of there, and I'm gonna redo that one. I didn't like the look of the color, how that one was. So yeah, that's off. The relay's out of there. At the moment, I don't have the replacement relay. They've been ordered, but they haven't shown up yet. They should be here later this week. So I guess this project is going to sit here for now and wait for that. So there's the relay. I tested it here just a few minutes ago, and what it was showing here was the contacts on the one side we were closed where we should be normally closed, and on the other side we weren't. So there's something definitely going on with the one set of contacts. I haven't rigged something up here yet to apply 12 volts to it to switch it and see what's going on, but in a lot of ways I really don't care. At this point we troubleshot the thing down to this relay. A quick test shows that it's not doing what it should be doing, in that the two sides should be the same, and we've got a clear difference between the two sides. So we can pretty safely say this is it without even doing any further testing. The replacement ones should be here in a couple of days. I'll put one in, and hopefully our problems are all gone. So the relay's got to go in. After that, that SO239 will go back in there, kind of like so. And once that's done, the top part of the case will go back on, and then we'll have to re-rivet all of these where the rivets where I had to drill them out. So that'll be that. So far so good. I'm glad that this all came apart reasonably well. Getting with pads like that with a lot of thermal mass to them and on both sides, it can be tricky to desolder stuff from them. Luckily, everything, it seems to be a pretty decent board there. Nothing threatened to lift off or anything like that, which that's always my big fear with trying to remove components like that. So far so good, and we will see where it goes from here. Just waiting now on the replacement part. And like I said, that was just under $10 Canadian for this guy here. So plus shipping, which they get 20 bucks for that, so twice as much as the part. So when you order stuff like this, you want to either order some spares or find other stuff to order at the same time to sort of reduce that shipping cost. So there we go. We'll check in with this once the replacement relay is here. Okay, we're back here with this switch. The replacement relay showed up today. So that's been changed out there now. I soldered it back into place right there, and then put that SO239 back in. When I put the SO239 back in, I put the faceplate here back on temporarily so I could line up this flange distance so it was the right distance offset off of the board before I soldered it, and then that way it'll be right when we rivet that back into place. So those are soldered back in. I touched up a couple other little solder connections on the board that I'm sure they were fine, but just a few that didn't look as good as some of the rest. So those have been touched up, and this is ready to go back together. So the next thing I've got to do is get rivets or screws, one or the other. I had to go look what I've got in stock here and put that back on there and just reassemble everything in the case. So there we go. And then I got to test it. If I've got the rivets and all that in place, I'll probably put that in place here. Well, no, first I'll put my temporary wire on, test it all, and then rivet that in place so that if there's any troubles, we don't have to drill those out again. So that's the scoop. Okay, here we are. We've got the switch all done and back together. See, I've got a little written, the number 2 there, their silk screening actually never was there on that switch when I got it. Kind of like how the C's are sort of missing there. So we've got the new rivets in, got aluminum rivets to match up with the plate there, and yeah, set that here. The repair is done, as we saw before. That's the relay's been changed out, the SO239s are back, the front panel's riveted back on, that's all done, and I've added back in my extra relays here. And these extra relays, what they do is they combine and float the unused antennas, because I'm using this switch for a poor man's 4 square. So that's I've added them in there. I may show the schematic for that here shortly, but it just combines the ones that aren't in use. So if you're using antenna 1, then that groups together 2, 3, and 4, and they're floating, and antenna 1 is in use. So that's the way that works. So there we go. It is ready to go back together and back into service. So that is it for the repair.